I'm at the shop right now working on this Nissan Frontier. I'm rebuilding the entire front suspension of it, and I figured it'd be a good opportunity just to kind of show you some tips and tricks, some stuff that I've learned that helps me whenever I'm doing a lot of the work that I'm doing like today. So I've got pretty much everything up out from underneath the sucker. And essentially, if you've seen this truck before, this is the black manual Frontier that I've been working on. I originally was just gonna make a quick little swap and sell it just to make some money, but I decided to keep it. I ordered a bunch of suspension parts because it's got north of 230,000 miles on it. I figured may as well go ahead and fix everything that's broken on it because it doesn't look like they have ever done any maintenance. So this is essentially the entire front end suspension without the CVs. I removed those whenever I did the engine swap. I figured, I guess it'd probably just be easiest to go from top to bottom, but the order doesn't really matter except for certain things, so I guess that's good to touch base on here. If we're gonna start at the top, the upper control arms, this side's pretty easy. They are 19s, and you just kind of pop them off, no big deal. The center ball joint is a 22, and the easiest way to get that sucker out, at least that I've found, is you use a universal on the 22, and you ram it right up in there, and then you can use your impact to bust it loose, and that's super easy. And I normally leave that sit in there, and I actually don't pull it out until I kind of like go to remove the whole assembly. The lower control arms, I don't know if you feel crafty or if you feel like you want to hate yourself, just cut them out. Cut them out, Sawzall blades, trim up your Sawzall blades like so. I get the long ones, and then as I use them, I just keep cutting them down so I keep getting more and more usefulness out of the blade. So the lower control arms you cut for sure. Unless maybe you're in Texas or something like that, you definitely just want to cut those suckers out. And you do a cut here, and a cut here, cut here, and cut here. And they kind of come out pretty easily. You know, it doesn't take too much time, but they're almost always seized. And then the lower ball joint, I think the easiest way, at least in my experience, is to go ahead and pull your hub out, which is 4 17mm bolts on the back. Once you get that hub knocked out of there, this little hole right here is really good for a pry bar to get in between and just get that pried right out, and it should pop off after that. The tie rod end is a 22, should be, and then that's pretty simple. Impact, pop it off, hit it down. The caliper, brake caliper bolts, those are 19s. You know, just turn the wheel a little bit, angle it towards you. The inner tie rods, I used an actual tie rod device, but you could use a giant adjustable. And the shocks, the top portion are 3 14mm bolts. The lower are 19mm. And I'm sorry if some of these sound like a question. It's a lot easier to say it as you're doing it. But the lowers could be kind of a bitch to get. It just depends, but they should be 19s on the bottom, and then the top 14s. Nothing really a big deal there. The tie rod, or not the tie rod, the sway bar end links, I've got this 19 here that I've ground down, and it just slides right in between my little end link right here. Whenever it's connected to the sway bar itself, it slides right in, and it's really easy. And this other side's a 17, and it just kind of pops right off. And then I think the other it's not really difficult other than that, because I mean, let's see, the hub you just kind of beat off. That's really not that big of a deal. Cut there. The brakes come off pretty easily. Upper control arm. The only other issue that I think people like come across that they kind of ding themselves on or they get mad about is the upper control arm on the driver's side. The way that the bolt is, the bolt slides in this way, so whenever you go to extract it, it hits this boot. A lot of people say cut it. I never have. I've always taken the 12mm off of right down here, and then you just wiggle this boot free a little bit, and it pops right out, and then you can slide the bolt out so you can reuse the bolt at a later date. But if you want to cut it, you can. It doesn't take long, but to me it just didn't take nearly as long either to just go ahead and remove that. As far as everything that I'm gonna replace, it's gonna be pretty much everything. I still need to get the engine mounts redone, so that's my next step. But it's gonna be upper, lower control arms, struts, inner and outer tie rods, hubs. I've got a new CV axle because I broke the other one. New brakes, just kind of the whole deal. And then I did end up getting a bunch of new bolts from Z1 Motorsports. That's a really good source for OEM bolts, man. I had a really good time bouncing around on their website and finding all the little stuff that I needed for this particular project. Here we can go. Excuse the garage, it's a bit of a mess at the moment. But I got, let's see, here's my lower control arms, upper control arms, KYB struts, my brakes, all the bolts, all the alignment bolts, everything that I need. I got all this stuff that's all OEM, and I got it all from Z1 Motorsports. Timken bearings, and then I've got there's my diff that still needs to go in, my inner and outer tie rods, and my motor mount. So I've got quite a bit of work left to do, but I just figured I would take this moment because these are all of the tools that I had out as I pulled this off. So I didn't use anything other than this. Obviously I had to jack it up, put it on jack stands, but I didn't use anything other than what you see right here to get the entire front suspension taken apart. So just take note, I use 17 through 22, a couple of ratchets, a couple of wrenches, some screwdrivers, some pliers. Now I didn't have to use every little item. Maybe I grabbed a set of flat nose and I was like, oh, you know what, the bigger pliers maybe work better for this application. Or maybe I thought I'd need the big hammer and I used the littler one instead. So just take note, if you're about to tackle a job like this, these are the tools that I used. And I would say it takes maybe about an hour per side. If these bolts weren't seized, I bet I could have done it probably about 45 minutes or so a side. But hopefully that helps just a little bit in case you are taking this shit apart. I got a lot of fucking work to do, so I'm gonna go do that.